Hello, everybody out there in Chatland. This is the exhausted father to a newborn, Gene Lyons here, with a bit of a note about this episode. So many of you have written in on Facebook, on Discord, on Instagram to ask, what happened to Airheads? Did I miss the Airheads episode? Did you guys decide not to do Airheads? And the truth is much more mundane. Big D, in his wisdom, let me know that once the baby was born, I'd be strapped for time, strapped for sleep, and should probably bank a few episodes in advance. So we did. But then the aforementioned sleep deprivation kicked in, there was a bit of a mix-up, and we fell out of sequence with our edits. So, you got Dungeons & Dragons first, and now you get Airheads. We appreciate your understanding and continued support. Enjoy the show.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time, decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all our information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene and dear listeners, tonight I'm really excited. Our mantra, our mission statement was always to go back and see how's a movie holding up. But also along our journey, it's fun to go back and look at the world of the 80s and the 90s. So tonight is one of those time capsule films where I think a lot of our discussion will be growing up in this time, because today in 2025, anyone under the age of probably like 25 or 30, this must seem like an ancient archive of like music in the 20s. Like this must have been what it would be like for someone when we were growing up, talking about like flappers and the roaring 20s and speakeasies. This film has to seem that ancient to people, don't you think, Gene?
I think it's closer to like doo-wop, the Motown sound, maybe. I don't know about fucking flappers. Yeah, it's Lead Belly. It's basically Lead Belly. Besides
the music, it's everything about it. It's the music, it's the medium, it's the everything surrounding music, surrounding life. And it's for our great listener, John W. He's coming with some great commissions. And so tonight's film, Wayne's World plus Dog Day Afternoon times Spinal Tap minus the talent. Or School of Rock divided by musical skills plus Empire Records times Idiocracy. I think that is a perfect mathematic equation for tonight's film. It's a hard rock hostage comedy with mallcore energy, brain dead rebels, and just enough Beavis to make it beautiful. It's for our great listener again, John W., and it has to be the 1994 American comedy film, Airheads.
Now, I reached out to John to get his thoughts on the film before we recorded, and he was having trouble finding it online. I let him know, just listeners, if you're out there, there's a little thing called the Internet Archive, and it is on there if you wish to check it out. But John struggled for a while, wrote me back, said, hey, listen, man, I'm not finding it. I'm just going to go based on what I remember. And he said, I don't really know what to say about Airheads. I liked it because it was a metal movie and also a comedy, and it was actually pretty funny. At least I thought so at the time. It's been a hot minute since I've seen it. The cast is great, like 90 star after 90 star, and even more obscure ones like Joe Mantegna. But everyone's so young. It makes me feel really old. I couldn't watch it, so maybe it sucks now. I hope not. Rock and roll, John.
So I wanted to investigate, because a lot of times we guess what it could be. Was it something with one of the actors? Are they trying to bury it because it was a failure for a studio? And in the end, this film, it just comes down to the hassle of licensing it and the value monetarily it can return. So it's more work for them and their legal department to just write out all of the contracts that allow it to be on streaming services, that they just say, fuck it. And that blows my mind. In a digital age, you would think it would be worth it for them to invest a couple hundred hours just to put their entire library out there. All the movies that we can't find, that are disappearing, and go back to your argument for real physical media. In the world we live, everything should become available. Why a studio would turn its back on any revenue stream?
I think the upside of that, though, is that when they don't have them streaming, they also tend to not really prosecute when it's out there for free. So the piracy can kind of fill in where the official streams don't. And in these cases, Big D, I know you and I always debate over that murky area. I think it's perfectly okay to grab yourself a copy wherever you can find it. And Big D, you alluded to this being essentially prehistory when it comes to music. I want to take everyone back to the mid-90s and where we were as teenagers or, college-aged adults. The mid-90s had us all convinced that real rock had won the airwaves, right? Grunge was king at that point. Wayne and Garth were household names, and mainstream pop was all but dead. If you were a kid in school and you listened to boy bands or pop music, like, you were considered a dork. You were not cool. You were not hip. Rock was what was in. And Airheads hit us at exactly that right time. It seemed like the whole world was a party. It seemed like Gen X and millennials had it all figured out. We would overcome the man. Everything was about revolution. Everything was about changing the world. And I got to tell you, sitting here in 2025, we were so naive.
Yeah, Gene, we had to fight the normies.
Yeah.
We had to fight what mom and dad want to. You can't do that with boy bands or even like hair bands. You need something angry, something loud, so your parents would worry that you might go kill yourself, Gene. Or you might get like possessed by the devil as you're down in your basement playing Dungeons and Dragons and listening to like Ozzy Osbourne. Your life could just be ruined
while watching The Craft.
Oh, and then like The Crow, and you're lucky to survive that you made it to this ripe old age, Gene. And I was excited for this when it came up, because I think back to past commissions of similar films like Detroit Rock City. I had no experience in it, came into it, loved it. It shaped the way I saw Detroit when I went, or Empire Records, or even Pump Up the Volume, which isn't the exact same thing, but it's teen rebellion, it's music, it's radio, it's everything. And I had low expectations because this isn't one of the films that people talk about in the genre. And I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know what I was expecting, but the cast is amazing. It is a who's who of future stars, future comedians, and it caught me off guard in a lot of ways. And I think it's successful in just opening up the conversation about what it was like to grow up in this time, and talk about classic rock and what misfit teens used to do in the garage when they were like smoking weed, and the mystery of the metalheads at the lunch table in school. So, John, thank you for taking us back. And hopefully, at least for tonight, I can sit with the metalheads and they'll accept me.
Airheads is a 1994 comedy starring Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and Adam Sandler as the members of a struggling rock band who hijack a Los Angeles radio station in order to get their demo aired. The rest of the principal cast includes Chris Farley, Michael McKean, Judd Nelson, Michael Richards, and Joe Mantegna, with Ernie Hudson and David Arquette in supporting roles. Although it was a critical and commercial failure, Airheads has since come to be viewed as a cult film. Let's hit the trailer.
They may not have courage.
I don't want to go to jail. I'm fragile.
They may not have vision.
What are you thinking about?
Swimming pools.
They may not have brains.
We gotta send one person out.
I'll go.
One of the hostages, doof. Sorry.
But they've got everything it takes
God help us all!
to be airheads.
What's wrong with that?
Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, Adam Sandler.
He doesn't wear a helmet, does he?
Airheads.
No idea what you're saying right now.
Directed by Michael Lehman. Rated PG-13. Parents strongly caution. Sneak preview tomorrow.
In Los Angeles, Chester Chaz Darby Ogilvy and his friends, sibling musicians Rex and Pip, are in the Los Angeles hard rock band The Lone Rangers, who are continuously rejected while trying to get their demo tape heard by record producers like Jimmy Wing. After scolding him for being lazy, Chaz's girlfriend Kayla kicks him out of her apartment.
I gotta tell you, Gene, just seeing Brendan Fraser, we've already talked about how young they were. Seeing him young in this movie, it made me smile. He's so likable. He's charismatic. He's so damn cute. You just want to root for him. It's crazy to think about his career, how dark it got. Because when we did, I think, The Mummy, we talked about at that point, how did he not explode into the next big thing? He is a younger, maybe goofier Harrison Ford. He's got the charisma. He does the action. He does the comedy. He was so good in that that Hollywood turned its back on him. His health went downhill and he just disappeared. And there was years that you almost thought of him like a bust, like almost like a punchline from Encino Man or some of the films he had done that weren't the big blockbuster. And then he gets cast in The Whale. He comes back and you see him at the award show standing there crying, like a genuine emotion of finally being accepted back when he felt so alone. And suddenly everybody remembered what a good guy he was. And Airheads, if it proves anything, how good he was, how talented he was. I don't know how it went wrong because he just carries much of this movie on his back.
I know it's beside the point, but this time capsule, this 1994 time capsule, it might be the best Brendan Fraser has ever looked. He's shirtless in this. Adam Sandler shows little skin. They both look great. They're live, they're young, and they're just glowing. Wardrobe nailed the rock look for both actors. I mean, it's simple, right? Leather jacket, black jeans, black t-shirt, long hair. Textbook, but it's a good look for both of them. And then Steve Buscemi, my man, should never have abandoned this look. He should have insisted the facial hair, the long hair, the sleeveless black t-shirts. He doesn't look like his normal emaciated Boston Terrier look. He kind of looks like a badass.
If he stayed with this, he would just be one of those regular guys. He could be a normal guy, but most of his roles he got when he was really weird looking, if you think about his most iconic roles, were because of how strange he was. But here, he looks like a normal guy. He's not a weirdo. He's not some offbeat character. He's not in the corner staring at people. He's actually a guy who you could figure he could talk to women. He'd probably get laid. You know, he wasn't a freak. He's like a regular guy energy, but those other people you're talking about, Adam Sandler had abs. I had to pause it and rewind because it looked like they might have been sprayed on, but no, he had a six-pack. And Brendan Fraser, he looked good when he was in Tarzan, if you remember. But it was a little too oiled up and like he'd been working out for it. And I think Brandon suffered from one thing. He was going for the heartthrob. And the hair was always, you could tell it wasn't real, that he was losing it and having trouble with it. I think if Brandon had embraced the Billy Zane, shave it, go sexy Billy Zane, Brandon might not have had those dark days.
You think Brendan Fraser could pull off bald?
I don't know what he's possible of. He won an Oscar.
Look at that face and then consider that face with no hair. That's not going to work.
Oh, it could. Do you dare say heartthrob Steve Buscemi?
No, not heartthrob Steve Buscemi. Just like L.A. cool guy Steve Buscemi.
Yeah. I agree.
The Lone Rangers sneak into local rock station KPPX and ask DJ Ian the Shark to play their demo on the air. But when station manager Milo intervenes and calls Rex Hollywood Boulevard trash, Rex and Chaz pull out realistic-looking water pistols. Their reel-to-reel demo begins to play, but it's immediately destroyed when the player malfunctions. The trio attempt escape, but the station's accountant, Doug Beach, has already called the police, who surround the building as the Lone Rangers start rounding up Secretary Susie and the other employees, Yvonne, Marcus, and Carter.
So, Gene, as someone, you're about to be a father. I assume most of our listeners don't. Have you seen the video series where they will introduce children to a piece of 80s, 70s, and 90s pop culture and see what their reaction is?
This is going to wow you, but I have not seen that. I also have never seen Tarzan.
Were we talking Brendan Fraser? Or were we talking Disney?
Either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Phil Collins song.
And it goes hard.
I've
seen all the memes, but So I'm really, this is uncharted territory for me.
So the ones that I've seen, they have like, they will put out like an old rotary phone or a VHS tape, and the kids and then some teenagers will look at it like it's a foreign object. That's how I'm viewing this film now as a 50-plus-year-old man watching. And the premise of the film, and it's crazy watching Airheads, is because it all is based on a premise that doesn't exist anymore. Back at this time, you had to storm a radio station to get your demo played. Now you would Justin Bieber it. You would just go get a YouTube video. You would maybe drop it on to TikTok. You had a SoundCloud with your amazing band, Dante and the Infernos, and you got yourself like hooked onto one of those like those compilation.
Now, whoa. Hold on. Let's not rewrite history here, okay? I didn't get on SoundCloud and then get discovered by Rockin' Necropolis. We had to mail out CDs to everybody. We did it old school. We did it the right way. And we got discovered. There was no SoundCloud back then.
I mean, that's now.
It's out there now, yes. Right. But do not besmirch the name of Dante and the Infernos.
So there was no solicitation? Is that what you're saying with your demos? Did you run around like handing out? Were they discs or tapes?
They were discs. Yeah, they were discs.
See, but you're older, okay? Because here it was still tapes. It was reel to reel. It was some cassettes, and it's even now you look at like Howard Stern leaving satellite radio, or maybe he's coming back or whatever it is. But even like the radio stations, it used to be the big one in New York, like Z100. If you got on there, you had made it. The power the DJ had, or XM radio, and how you'd get this movie makes that seem so antiquated because now. It's more of a factory. We've talked about this. It's more the look. It's more processed. It's more curated. It's not so much. You can't be that ugly, weird band that just strikes a nerve and catches on without having been manufactured or some help in the background, it seems.
I think the movie addresses that, though, right? The band that's getting all the hype while the Lone Rangers aren't getting any, they've got a gimmick, right? And they're like, oh, fuck, we got to get a gimmick. And then nobody cares about them. They can't get the airplay until they have their gimmick. Their gimmick is that they held hostages at a radio station. That's when Jimmy Wing gets interested. And it's important to note that radio itself is doing pretty fine compared to other legacy media. Being a humble print journalist as I am, like I can tell you, newspapers not doing so well. But a 2025 report found that 78% of Gen Z are still tuning into radio, and that the overall number of weekly listeners is at its highest in decades. Radio is also still the dominant platform for ad-supported audio listening. This number blew my mind. 67% of total time spent listening to ad-supported audio was on radio, 18% podcasts, only 12% for streaming music. So in that sense, people are still listening to radio, but you're absolutely correct. Breaking through on the radio, like becoming a star by getting on the radio first, that's a different story.
But I think that's just basic laziness. Because like, for example, my wife has Apple Play, right? So she's got to get in, she's got to plug in her phone.
Yeah.
Then she's got to go to Apple Play. She has to pick a source, as opposed to you turn it on, you hit the radio.
Yeah.
The radio is there. It's easy. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason it survives. People aren't choosing to be like, oh, I can't wait to listen to the radio. They're doing it out of like a necessity. I just got to get to work.
You were talking about radio is dead. Radio's not dead. It's convenient.
Radio is no longer a tastemaker. It is the background music of our lives. You get in the car, you turn it on. There's something there. I don't pay attention to it. I don't know the band. I can't see the name. I'll just listen to it, turn the car off mid-song, and I'll get back in. There'll be another song. And that was how I knew like Harry Styles, although back then when we were asking how I knew Watermelon Sugar, because I had heard some of it, right?
So you're saying that you discovered Harry Styles through the radio.
That was one example. Fine. Maybe there's a flaw in my theory. It's possible.
Okay.
It's possible.
I mean, here's the thing. I almost wish that things worked the way you just said, because in the early days of the internet, I was so optimistic about the World Wide Web democratizing music. And in a way it did. I mean, if you remember those early Wild West days, you could hear emerging bands. The example I like to give is Prick. Okay. I heard Prick not through the radio. It never got radio play, but my friends would burn mix CDs. You'd get those mix CDs. You could never find it in a store. It was on a mix CD. And then you could go find that band. Prick would never make it to the radio in Phoenix in the mid 90s. Okay. It's just not going to happen. DJs kind of felt like the bad guy at the time. There were these gatekeepers that were following the payola model, right? Whatever the record label would pay them to play, they would pay it. And that's what got airtime. That's what got high circulation. And they were, as you said, the tastemakers. But if you fast forward a few decades to now, the DJs have largely been erased. I think that's the sad part. That human touch, that human curation is largely gone. Lots of those DJs, at least the late night ones, are the ones that had a very specific format, like the metal ones or the alternative music ones. Those are the ones that were exposing us to new and exciting bands. And perhaps more importantly, they were filtering out all the crap, right? They're like, this does not deserve the airplay because it sucks. Instead, we have something awful now. And I think it's even worse than radio, which is the Spotify algorithm, right? Full disclosure here. I have Spotify. I use my sister's account legally. You're allowed to do that. If it were not free, I would not use it, but I'm not going to turn down a free thing. Maybe I'm part of the problem, but let's go through what's wrong with Spotify, okay? First of all, low payouts, right? Artists, when they get paid on Spotify, they don't get paid very much. It's not nearly what it would be if they were actually selling albums and getting the royalties off of those albums. They also do now internal content and fake artists. So basically, you'll see this a lot, particularly like around the holidays, right? You're like, I want to listen to a Christmas playlist, right? And it's like, do you want to listen to a lo-fi Christmas playlist? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess. And you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. Some lo-fi beats and Christmas remix or something like that. What you don't know is that can be internal content. It's like when Amazon kind of puts its own brand there, right? You're listening to music from Spotify, so they don't have to pay an artist for that. But they also do this thing that's called pro rata and also big label equity, right? And that basically is that the deals that they have are with the labels, not with the artists. And so the bigger labels, they get paid the bigger share of the total money that's going into Spotify memberships. It's not exactly proportionate to what people are listening to. So there's all of that. And then Big D, you talked about movies and needing to have the physical copy because you won't be able to find it. I have a prediction. And the prediction is that when people get dependent on the streaming services like a Spotify, we'll be less and less able to find what we want. Like, I think that they will start scaling that back for the same reasons. Like, hey, you know what? People have given up on CDs. They've given up on records. They've given up on cassette tapes, right? Maybe we cut Motorhead out and it'll be okay. There's all this other stuff you can still listening.
Because it's just not worth the hassle for them to license it out and to play it.
Yeah.
It's all the gentrification of everything. It started with like with the Applebee's and with all the restaurants, Gene, and now it's coming for our music. It's coming for our movies. It's coming for everything, Gene.
Why would it be in their best interest to drive you to stuff that is a pain in the ass for them to maintain? Or that not a lot of people are listening to. So instead of discovering that band, they're going to be like, oh, you like Prick? Maybe you'll like Creed. It's a stretch, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and you haven't even just brought up AI now. Artificial bands and songs and songwriters and artists. That when it becomes more cost effective to not have an actual band and singer and just create an artificial one that can be eternal, evergreen content. Yeah, oh man, I'm ready to like pick up an Uzi and let's go storm somewhere, Gene. Where do we storm? It's probably some server room in Silicon Valley that I don't know where all the server farms.
Save us, Neil Young. He's still alive, right?
I hope so. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Since the station never went off the air, fans begin showing up outside and interfering with police. SWAT team leader Carl Mace is itching to use force, but Police Sergeant O'Malley calls for negotiation. Mace's team smuggles a submachine gun to Beach, who has been hiding in the air ducts. During the crisis, Ian learns that Milo secretly signed a deal to change KPPX's format from rock to adult contemporary. Consequently, Ian and some employees side with the band and turn against Milo. The police find Kayla, and she delivers a backup demo tape. Unfortunately, she also destroys the studio after arguing with Chaz. Big D, I'm going to get heavy here for a moment. Martin Luther King popularized, but yes, Martin Luther King. He popularized the phrase riots are the language of the unheard. While the whole Airhead scenario is pretty unrealistic, like police would not be this patient. If you're running around in front of a radio station with a submachine gun, you're probably going to get shot. Reality aside, I totally understand why a crowd would gather to support the Lone Rangers. It's the same reason, right or wrong, that people cheered for Luigi Mangione. When you have a population that feels unheard or powerless, whether it's against, big radio or whether it's against the insurance companies, they don't feel like they're part of a system. And when you're not included in a system, there is no incentive to honor any part of that system's order. And that's some pretty heavy shit. What Airheads does, though, is it makes it palatable. It makes it enjoyable, makes it entertaining. It gives us three guys who are goofy, they're kind-hearted, they're worth rooting for, and not too heavy a story, right? Like this could be a very dark tale, but they choose not to go in that direction. And that alleviates some of the conflict of, should I root for these guys? Like, is this okay? And it keeps things fun. Prime example, squirt guns, right? Such a smart twist. You know that they're not actually going to hurt anybody. They're goofballs that filled up fake Uzis with hot sauce. There's no indication that there's a violent bone in their bodies.
You see, but I think back to now, because this was a common trope or common theme in a lot of 80s teen angst films. It seemed like kids were ready just at any moment to get the call from their buddy and be like, hey, we got to get out there in the field, for like pump up the volume.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to go out there and listen to the station. We're going to find out what he's saying, or Legend of Billie Jean. It seemed like at this time, maybe there wasn't anything to do, and just you would hear on the radio that people were getting together and you would just go somewhere.
I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Yes, there wasn't as much to do. People were consuming the same media, I think, which helped a lot too. I think you and I have talked about this off the air. It's the notion of like a common story. You and I grew up with a common story. We knew what America was, what it stood for. We knew Hulk Hogan, rock, flag, and eagle. That's what we were about. Americans stood for liberty. We were a force for good. We had an identity. It was a shared identity. 9/11 was pretty much the last time that America had a shared identity. And any of the kids born after that, they never experienced that. They are more in tune with their region or their family than they are with a national identity. If you took 100 kids from across the country and asked them, what does America stand for? I guarantee you get at least 20 different answers. Back then, though, if somebody was like, hey, the radio station, there's a party going down at the radio station, we're all going. Right? Because we all associate with that radio station. We all have a common idea of like what's right and wrong.
See, but I think it goes down to like now we talk about, right, how the left and right have been taught to fight each other when we should be fighting up and down. We should be fighting power. It used to be we all, whether you were poor left, poor right, we all got together and said, you're not taking our radio station off the air.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not going to railroad Billie Jean. Billie Jean's innocent. You got to free her. We would all fight against power, regardless of who you were, where you were. I think you're right on that.
And I want to say something for the right-wing listeners, okay? I find it ridiculous every time there's a shooting or some sort of national tragedy when the immediate argument becomes over, are they left or are they right? That shit drives me nuts. I am perfectly willing to admit that there are violent people across the spectrum because people are complicated. Violence is complicated and people have all kinds of motives. People seem bewildered and perplexed. Pro-Trump, but he was an immigrant. Pro-gun, but marched in the BLM. Yeah, you could do all those things, dude. People have all kinds of reasons for what they do.
No, it's because everybody will now like quantify things and what their beliefs are and what they align with down granularly. It used to be you could protest the police, like you said, just like closing down a radio station. Everybody would be, yeah, it's fucked up. And you'd be like, well, hold on. What else do you think about? Let's delve deeper. You couldn't find one uniting cause. Back then, it was parents. Parents didn't understand. The school didn't understand the simple things that kids could rally against. Today, it's down to your little niche experience in life, and I think that's sad.
Do you think if the United States were attacked, a terrorist attack, do you think it would unite the country, let's say like 9/11, or do you think it would just be finger pointing on whose fault it was that we got attacked?
I will always go back to my one experience in life that shaped a lot of who I am today. I was serving when September 11th happened. And I remember there's an ad, and it showed like a Brooklyn street with a bunch of brownstones. And you hear an airplane overhead, and it's talking about how the terrorists on that day aimed to change us. And the screen goes black, and it fades in, and it goes, they were right, it did. And it was that same Brooklyn street of brownstones with American flags. And I had the honor of the 4th of July weekend after September 11th, the following. So it was 4th of July weekend, 2002. We were in West Point training the cadets. We did a re-enlistment ceremony in the whole of September 11th, of Ground Zero. And everywhere we walked around Manhattan, it was the respect. Everyone was on the same page. I believe we could be united again. As long as it's not Israel. If Israel attacked us, we're fucking done then. I'm gonna go even further now, Gene. This is 100% honest in this film. The protests you mentioned, they're going off the rails. All these people show up, long-haired guys and their girlfriends. They're drinking out in the open. And this is how it happened in my head. I'm watching the protests. It's growing larger. The crowd is unruly. Chaz and the boys are running in and out of the radio station into the crowd. They're riling up the crowd of protesters. No one is listening to the police. The police all have their weapons drawn. It's getting out of control. Chaz is like, he's sweeping all the police with his Uzi. And I'm starting to think, shit, this is LA. What would happen if this was like a black crowd? And I start thinking about Rodney King. I'm like, LAPD at this point wasn't exactly, their reputation wasn't for as tolerant as they're here. 30 seconds later, Gene, Chaz jumps on to the hood of the car and starts chanting, Rodney King, Rodney King. And I was blown away. This is 2 years after Rodney King. I'm not woke, but this is too soon to be championing or chanting Rodney King after the city burned 2 years before and use him as a punchline or whatever. You're trying to prove a point in this. A rallying cry for a bunch of metalheads at a radio station, Rodney King, seemed a little tone deaf.
Thankfully, Airheads bought itself some wiggle room on the racial issues because it showed how racially clueless the Lone Rangers are. These are not bright guys by any means. There's a scene before that where Pip asks Yvonne, who's black, she works at the radio station. He says, why don't black people like me? He's holding her hostage. He's like, why don't black people like me? And then he says, it's just, I listen to a lot of rap music and I know how angry black people are. And I feel bad for all that you guys got to put up with. I'm okay with this again, because it's punching up, right? It is making fun of these white boys who really all their trials and tribulation in life, they put upon themselves. Like, yes, they've taken a radio station over. They're terrorizing these people. They're holding people hostage. Why? Because they feel it's not fair that their demo tape didn't get played.
It's even further, Gene. He feels oppressed because his name is Chester. Yeah. And he played Dungeons and Dragons in his basement. That was his biggest shame in life.
Yeah.
And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Marcus, the other black hostage, who seems to be like the more rebellious of the two when Adam Sandler's trying to relate to him. And he goes, hey, back up. You're standing on my dick. I laughed out loud. Great. The hostages, I wanted more of them and less of a certain character. I think we'll get into.
While cheesing for the crowd, Rex accidentally breaks his plastic gun. Marcus and Carter run out and tell the SWAT team the band's guns are fake, while Beach corners the band from an air vent. Ian knocks down Beach's gun, causing the weapon to wildly fire rounds and ward off the police. Record executive Jimmy Wing offers the band a contract and arranges a stage to be airlifted to the radio station for a live concert. The band discover only the PA system is real and everything else is just props. Instead of agreeing to lip sync, they destroy their instruments in protest to the delight of the crowd and stage dive into the hands of the cheering audience. So, Big D, you talked about how Brendan Fraser carries this movie. And at this point in the movie, I'm starting to realize that although he is the main moving force, this isn't just a Brendan Fraser movie, nor is it just an Adam Sandler movie. And it's not a Steve Buscemi movie or a David Arquette movie. Airheads pulls a magic trick. It somehow manages to be everyone's movie. Half the Ghostbusters are in there. They're doing their thing. Michael McKean is doing his thing. Judd Nelson shows up. He's at his best. The movie somehow morphs to accommodate the style of each of these actors and grab their talents, maximize them in their own unique ways. Except for one guy, Michael Richards. He is fucking terrible in this movie.
Gene, to show you how much talent is on this screen, you didn't even mention Chris Farley.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Chris Farley would be headlining another comedy at this time. Michael Richardson, I'm a Seinfeld fan. I love it. I remember the series finale, drinking Captain Morgan's in college. We set our couch on fire and threw it off the roof. It was a wild night when the finale aired.
Damn.
It was crazy. I'm surprised I hadn't talked about the story. It'll come up one day. But it just proves he is a one-trick pony. He famously had that meltdown after Seinfeld when he was doing stand-up. But I'm talking about him as a character. He was in what? Wasn't he in UHF?
UHF, Stanley Spadowski, yeah.
Was he good in that? Because I was not on
that. Yeah, but that was pre-Seinfeld, so.
Okay, because here, all I'm seeing is Kramer. It's the same routine. It's that stumbling, ooh, the bumbling, the shocked face, the falling down all over the place. He's literally Kramer in an air duct. So he's going to help them. They're shifting genres, and they're going from rock to easy listening. And it's this whole transition away from the whole rock is dead. That's the whole message of Airheads. Is it's changing over. Rock is no longer what it was, and it makes sense if you think back to '94. We had in the 80s, you had hair metal, and true metalheads hated it. They thought it was like poser metal, the Poison, the Cinderella, the Twisted Sister. And now you get finally to a chance where maybe some of the heavier bands are going to come back. And then instead, we get Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Smashing Pumpkins, and grunge is everywhere. So the rock fan kind of felt a little off, like, hey, this isn't traditional rock, but it wasn't dead. It had evolved. And the Lone Rangers, they embody that message, that feeling of like the people who were rock fans who felt left behind. They wanted airplay. They wanted the AC/DCs, the Metallicas, the heavy metal, the bands that they grew up with and they felt were like this rebellious call. And instead, they were left with some kids in flannel shirts singing depressing music about not fitting in. I can understand how they felt left behind.
1994 was a pivotal year, Big D. After that, things really, there were dark days. Best-selling album of 1995 was Hootie and the Blowfish. Like, that's how quickly shit fell off. Did you know that Taylor Swift had the best-selling album of 2020, 2022, and 2024?
As she should. Yeah. Don't come at me. I'm a Swiftie.
And the only break in there was in 2021, which was Adele. What are we doing?
I don't know. I think it's as much as like I like Taylor from Emma, and we saw her in concert. I think there's less originality. I think even if you go back to '94, this was also where rap became where it became more widespread. It became mainstream. It was okay to play Dr. Dre or Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. or even like TLC Boys to Men, that whole, it was where you started to diversify. But somewhere, Gene, I think you're right. We've whittled it down to now it is just such a manicured Spotify playlist of just the same old. I'm picturing there's like a giant AI machine, and we're seeing his ass. And everything that drips out of the ass, all of us as consumers are just lapping it up, just looking up and sucking down all this fabricated just bullshit of music and media. And, you know, I think we're ready for our cabin in the woods, Gene.
Listeners, it is now September 2025. We have 3 months essentially left in the year. I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you as a favor to your buddy, Gene Lyons, go out there and buy a bunch of albums from a bunch of artists that are not the redneck racist karaoke machine known as Morgan Wallen. Because he's in position right now to have the best-selling album of 2025. We cannot let that happen in this country, guys. We cannot. That is a dog shit musician.
So is he a fabricated like creation, Gene?
Oh my God, dude.
Or is he an outlaw rebel of country music?
No, dude. I think he studied like supply chain management or some shit and then decided.
So he's into logistics?
Yeah. You know how like when they like just put a little bit of twang on pop music and they're like, it's country. That's him. If you listen to the beats, if you listen to the song structure, if you listen to all that shit, it is pop music. But you put a little down, and they're like, oh, it's country. It's not. It's not country music. Fuck that guy.
It's pure country.
George Strait would run circles around Morgan Wallen.
So you're saying George Strait would not be a Morgan Wallen's fan?
No. George Jones would fucking run him over. God bless George Jones. I'm going to make you a fucking mix CD. All my favorite country artists.
It's got to be a mixtape. I want a mixtape. Reel to reel.
The band later plays a gig in prison where they are incarcerated as Kayla and Susie dance in the background. The concert is shown live on MTV, and now their manager, Ian, says the band will start touring upon their release in 6 months, 3 months if they behave themselves. A postscript states that the Lone Rangers ultimately served 3 months in prison for kidnapping, theft, and assault with hot pepper sauce. Their album, Live in Prison, goes triple platinum.
So there's a bar scene. I was convinced Vince Neil was in it, where Vince Neil walked by with a girl. I rewound it. No, it was a Vince Neil lookalike. But there are so many 90s rock culture icons that are mixed into this with also popular culture references. You got White Zombie. We got a performance live in the Whiskey. They're playing Feed the Gods. You got Rob Zombie front and center. This is Rob Zombie, the musician, before we got him making films. You got Lemmy from Motorhead popping up outside the radio station. He's supposed to be like the school magazine editor for Rocker. And then you got Sons of Thunder, which is actually Galactic Cowboy in disguise. And then there's that phone call where into the radio station, they take a call from Beavis and Butthead. And I was kind of thrown off. I was thinking, was this so meta before Beavis and Butthead had broken big? Was this what? No, this is after Beavis and Butthead had already become popular. So this was a cultural moment where people in the theater probably lit up, laughing that Beavis and Butthead called in. Stuttering John from the Howard Stern show was in the crowd. I feel like there's more out there that maybe we haven't seen. But the cameos are great.
Yeah, don't forget Kurt Loder.
Oh, yes.
As himself.
Oh,
he was there.
Gene, have you seen Kurt Loder today?
No. Does he look great?
No, he's about 90 years old.
Oh.
Yes, it'll make Google it. I want to see the sadness and the life force fall out of you. He's a crypt keeper. He's old.
He doesn't look bad.
Probably finding a doctored photo. But
let's see, 2025. He looks fine.
I don't. That's
you think he looks like a crypt keeper?
No, I think you're. These are. I can't even find an accurate photo. I'll find it for you. But just okay, we can skip that because I've seen photos of him. He is 75 years old and he looks. Oh, he's 80. Sorry, he is 80. So I want to find a picture of him.
He looks good for 80 from the photos I've seen.
Ozzy looked good. Kurt Loder.
Ozzy did not.
He looked fantastic.
What are you talking about? Ozzy looked like somebody's grandma.
No, that's Steven Tyler. You're getting your musicians mixed up.
No, Steven Tyler is someone's grandma, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I stuck around for the end credits just to make sure that I caught everyone in this movie. And I noticed that Lemmy, they listed him as Lemmy Von Motorhead. So then I went to type that into my notes, and my iPhone auto-corrected Motorhead and put the umlauts on there. So good job, Apple. You ruined the world with Apple Music, but at least you got the umlauts right. And before we give our Shat scores, Big D, I really want to present a Shat Lifetime Achievement Award to 77-year-old Joe Mantegna. From Joey Zaza in The Godfather 3 to Dean Martin in The Rat Pack to Fat Tony on The Simpsons, Joe Mantegna is just a joy in everything he does. In my humble opinion, he absolutely outshines everyone in this movie. Ian the Shark, this DJ, he is like the rock dad we wish we all had. He knows what he is. He's like, I like the classics. I don't really care for any of this stuff. And if it's too loud, you're too old. All these old rock sensibilities. He's cool, but he's not prone to fads. He's a gatekeeper, but he like recognizes the spirit in the Lone Rangers. He sees that these guys mean it when they say rock and roll. And this role is such a departure from the more serious work that Joe Mantegna has done. I felt like I was witnessing the moment when the casting department at Married with Children discovered that Ed O'Neill was funny, right? It's like, holy shit, I didn't know he could do this kind of movie.
No, he has a gravitas.
Yeah.
He has, I always make fun of Joe Pesci. That Joe Pesci was getting cast in these tough guy roles. Joe, he seems like he's done it. He's been there. When he speaks, you just sit back and you have to respect him. And as the DJ, he takes them on air. He champions their cause. He's honest about how he feels. There's a genuineness to him as a performer that I think comes out in all of his roles. And that, I think, is the highest praise. If you stop seeing the actor in a role, but you see the character, that's when you've done it. And I think in all of his roles, you forget who Joe is until you go back and look at his filmography. He's impressive.
All right, now the time in the podcast when we give our Shat score for Airheads. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is White Zombie playing the whiskey a go-go. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It's when everyone else gets to sit in a chair but you. Big D, as a senior member of the podcast, please do the honors.
Gene, I think I'm going to go with 2 wipes. It's good, but it falls short in one key area that the other movies succeed. The soundtrack. The soundtrack's a bit weak. They didn't encourage people to buy it. You think of like Wayne's World or even Detroit Rock City or think of all the films, Empire Records or even Dazed and Confused. The movies that get you rocking, that make you want to listen to the music. I didn't leave this film thinking, I want to go find go listen to White Zombie. I want to go listen to Motorhead. If they had weaved in some of the more popular music of the time, some of the heavy metal, and had some more cameos, I think the movie would have been a bigger hit and had a longer lasting effect and not being such a small cult classic. Performances are great. The cast is great. It's just not perfect. So I think I'm going to go 2 wipes. I think it's fair. It's better than average.
I know I said that this movie captured the party atmosphere of the mid-90s, and I stand by that. But I also couldn't help but think when they airlifted in the stage, when Brendan Fraser was on top of a cop car pointing an Uzi at everybody, a big part of my brain really kept saying, yeah, they'd be dead right there. And it's like the movie did not have to do that, right? They could have found ways to make it a party, but at the same time, and I'm not saying I wanted there to be a real threat to these guys, but rather stop developing situations that kept making me think, no, there's no way. There's just no way. Or the way Kayla just conveniently finds the tape that she threw out of a car on a busy night in LA, right? Just things that were beyond belief. I know it's a comedy, guys. Don't write in. Or do write in. I know it's a comedy. I get that I shouldn't take it too seriously. It's not what I'm saying is that if I'm distracted in those ways, I'm not picking up on jokes. I'm not like enjoying the movie. I'm being pulled out of it repeatedly. It was just an unforced error sort of thing. Not a bad movie. I was very entertained. I would watch this again. There are parts of this movie, we didn't even talk about Adam Sandler's sex scene, that are really a lot of fun. Michael McKean is a terrific villain who you almost start rooting for in the end. There's a lot of joy to be had in this film, but it is far from perfect. I'm going 2 wipes as well.
I think you're right. And we didn't even discuss like the subplot of the pool boy, you know, who's sleeping with the police like officers, almost like the traditional FBI agent role, who comes in, who's going to try to stop this from happening. And he finds out that Adam Sandler and his whole rant about his ex-wife and there's a lot of good things to think about this film. You're right. But when you're talking about, if I feel you correct, your problem with the Uzis and the real world violence was you didn't need to have it be so complicated. Like we joked in Pump Up the Volume that he put a radio transmitter in the back of his Jeep, drove around and broadcasted, right? And we said, that's ridiculous. You wouldn't be able to hear him over the wind noise. We're talking about you didn't need to complicate it where he would then Billie Jean style take someone hostage as he was doing it. That you made it real world too complex.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think 2 wipes is fair, people.
All right, that's a unanimous 2 wipes from Big D and Gene Lyons for 1995's Airheads.
That now ties that in the 158 spot with Teen Wolf, Kids, If Looks Could Kill, Tommy Boy, and the Blues Brothers.
Oddly enough, Blues Brothers is very much in the vein of Airheads, right? There's a common DNA there, but I think it's a superior movie.
Yeah, Roger gave it a 4.
What a dick.
The rest of us liked it. King B almost gave it a perfect score. He was at 0.5.
Yeah, he's a big Blues Brothers homer. All right. Well, John, I hope you're satisfied, as I was with your 20 mini chimichangas that I guzzled. Before we close out, got one email from listener Chris D, who says, "Hey, Shat crew, thanks for taking my Thief commission and for the review. It's a great movie. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I got a list of suggestions for commissions for you that have been building up, so this letter is way overdue. I'll start with these 2, but with this caveat. In reviewing this list, I realized that there's a theme to the movies I really enjoy. Much like the characters in Thief, all of these are filled with flawed people. I thought a great way to follow up Thief would be another James Caan movie, Way of the Gun. He's a minor character, but his performance is phenomenal. Caan, like Ryan Phillippe, Benicio del Toro, and everyone in the entire cast is imperfect, and it shows, but I really love watching the plot unfold, the acting, and the gunplay. It's a little bit slower than most would like, but check it out. Let me know your thoughts. Next, I'd like to put up True Colors, starring John Cusack and James Spader. Cusack is a law student, then congressional aide, who spends a lot of time in the gray areas between right and wrong. I remember watching it in college, and it provoked some really good conversations about ethics. I'd be interested to see how it held up since I haven't seen it in 30 years. Thanks again for all the great work, guys. Chris.
Oh, I misheard at first when you said True Colors. I thought it was Colors. The Sean Penn, where he was like a dirty LAPD cop.
I remember that one. Yep.
No, but Way of the Gun is great.
So good.
It's a little bit slow. I would do that in a second. That was a great, great film. And James Caan, again, is that old school bad dude who you believe is capable of killing people, tough guy, playboy, genuine old school guy.
That final shootout, like in the courtyard, is one of my favorite movie sequences of all time. I am 100% about this. And Benicio del Toro is really at his best in that film. Ryan Phillippe, even likable. Jesus Christ. Such a good movie. I've not seen True Colors, but I do think in the current political climate, that might be a really fun one to watch as well. If I had to choose out of the 2, Way of the Gun would be my choice, but I'd love to do both.
Agreed.
Great picks, Chris. All right. Well, John, thank you so much for commissioning Airheads and the upcoming film. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatpod.com. You can go to shatpod.com as well and use the SpeakPipe feature to leave us a voicemail. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all the information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all our information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
On a hidden island.
We can jump.
We're not gonna jump.
At the edge of the world. Anything can happen.
Do you have a girlfriend?
One.
Nothing is forbidden,
Would you like to come to the beach with me?
but there are secrets.
Oh my God!
No one escapes. Leonardo DiCaprio.
I will not die today!
The Beach, February 11th, only in theaters.
Gene, next week in the Kingdom of Izmir, wizards use their magic to rule the land. The young Empress Savina desires to use magic for good, but the evil what the fuck? Profion?
Yeah.
What's a Profion? It's like a wizard or
Profion.
something?
No, that's his name.
Oh. But the evil Profion plans to utilize his power to usurp the throne from Sylvia and subject the kingdom to totalitarian. I can't fucking read at this point. Subject the kingdom to totalitarian rule. Profion gains control of the kingdom's golden dragons. Oh, Jesus Christ. Let me try this one more time. Jesus, too much wine, too much Pinot.